Hi, I'm Eric Johnson. I'm here at the site of the North Raleigh Seed Library. This is our current configuration that has evolved over some time, and I'm here to share with you some of the lessons that we've learned in starting the seed library, and to give you some strategies for how, if you'd like to start your own seed library, you can certainly do that. It's something that we enjoy doing, and hopefully you do as well, but sometimes it might be a longer ride for people, or maybe you want to start one that's a little bit of a smaller group. As you may notice if you're on our Facebook page, we're now up to 2,800 members. We started as a small group of friends who just had a Facebook page and a Google sheet where we would list plants that we have that are just extras, and if somebody wants them, they could come and get them, or we could bring them to a central location, and maybe they had some they could trade, and that worked out pretty well. But then the library grew. We added a site that was similar to this, just a little further down the street, and more members joined. And as that happened, we realized that there are sort of lessons to be learned along the way that I want to just share with you if you're thinking about starting your own seed library. But if you want to do it, it's a great way to acquire some plants. It's a great way to acquire some expertise, and it's also a great way to plug into a community, or even start a new community wherever you might be. So what are the things to think about when you start a library? First would be, what is your vision for your library? I'm working from the notes a little bit, but this becomes important pretty quickly. When we first had a small group of people, we were pretty much in agreement as to what kinds of plants we wanted, and what we could offer to our friends. But other things that you start to think about as a library grows would be, do you permit buying, selling, or business promotion? And what kinds? It can be something very strict, which actually I think the North Raleigh Seed Library has that structure, where we really don't allow any kind of commercial interest introducing itself onto the library, because that can mean things like people come and get the plants from the library and then post them on another site to sell them. It can also then start to become things like, hey, I've got a business I'd like to promote. Seed Library community seems like a friendly place, so I'm going to promote my business. Okay, that's another form of it. Or it can be something like, my child wants to sell, my daughter wants to sell Girl Scout cookies, and here's a place you can buy them. It gets into the proverbial slippery slope pretty quickly. So for our preference, we like to keep it clean of any commercial interest like that, but there are other plant sharing sites, if they're not libraries, that permit that kind of thing, and it's okay, but it's something that you should probably think about before you start your library, and then hold the line, because there will be ways that people introduce trying to sell something, maybe even trying to buy something that may not fit with your library's vision, and you'll want to make sure that you're clear and clean as to what you want, what you don't want for your library. Another thing to consider is, would you include plants that are considered invasive, or plants that are natives or non-natives? People have some strong feelings and opinions about those things, and so do you want to get into that, or do you welcome debate about it? That's all okay, but you also want to make sure that when people are debating, that they're being respectful towards one another, and hopefully they're also using evidence when they introduce their viewpoints on plants. But again, these are things that some folks may say strictly only natives or non-natives are tolerable. Just have a clear vision of that, and state it right up front when people join, as to what your vision is for your library. Another very, very important point is picking a suitable location. As you can see, I'm standing here. If you've been to the library, you know that it's on a relatively not too busy street, but the Seed Library itself can be a busy spot. But it's a good thing to think about ahead of time as to whether cars can pull over, visit the library, and then pull away easily. Here we're lucky to have a turnaround spot, but there's also not a lot of cross traffic. So that's an important aspect of your site selection. Also, access to water. Do you have a hose, or in our case, we often have water cans that are filled here, and who's going to do it? It's if you just leave a water can there and hope that somebody fills it up, it might or might not work. But if you have a system in place for who is in charge of the water, where is it coming from, these are considerations to keep in mind as you're picking a spot for your library. Also, how much sun does it have? We're under a tree here. You probably see a lot of the shade coming down on it. It helps the library not become completely blasted out by sun, especially in these warmer months. But that's another consideration: is how much sun is the spot getting? Is there water? Is it a safe place to have cars pull over? Also, our original site was at the end of a cul-de-sac where children lived, and they sometimes played in the street. And as the traffic increased with the library, that actually gave us something to think about as to whether that's the best spot, because people were coming in. Sometimes they're just looking to see whether there are plants there. They're not even looking whether children are in the street, and before you know it, you have a safety issue. So we want to make sure that it's a safe spot for everybody in the neighborhood and the community that you're picking for your library location. One thing that you'll notice here, this is a really beautifully put together library box, but there's a function to it, in that we are storing our seeds in here, as we're called a seed library. We have these drawers that keep the seeds dry. They also have materials in here for labeling your plants, which is an important function at the library, because sometimes people just drop them off and don't label them, or they forgot to label them before they went home. So having some labeling supplies in here is very useful. Also, having the seeds dry and separated from one another. What you don't want is a bunch of seeds that are just falling down here underneath your library, and before you know it, you're going to have a crazy variety of plants growing underneath the kiosk here. But just a place to keep them dry. We also have magazines that we store in here. Just all kinds that are either catalogs or old magazines that a lot of people just like to thumb through them and just have them around. So they're pretty cool. But having a structure that is keeping your seeds dry is extremely important. So make sure that you're planning for that. We also have a sign here that says, if you bring some, or if you take something, bring something. We want to remind people that it's important that the library is not just a one-way street, that you want to be able to keep it replenished, but then also that it's not just sort of a plant ATM for folks, that there's really a sense of community, that we're here to share plants, even if your plant is not quite as good as the one that you may be picking up. Still, if you have one, there might be somebody else that could use that same plant. So whatever you can share with the library and with your community, that should be part of your plan for coming to to visit the library. We have the tables here that are organized by different people as they come through. Sometimes people will take pictures of the plants that are here at the library, or they'll announce that they've dropped something off. And then we also have the watering cans. There's also pots there for anybody that would like to just gather some extra pots, because they use them for planting up things back at home. So it serves a few different functions. One of the other things that we have tried here, and this kind of falls into the category of lessons learned, is that we used to have something called a hold table, where if somebody came and brought something to the library and they said, hey, I just dropped off Japanese maple or something like that, and what used to happen is that folks would say, oh, I want one, put it on the hold table for me with my name on it, and then they would hopefully come and pick it up at a later time, when they're available. That sounds practical, but what ended up happening is that there were some folks who would call in immediately when something got dropped off and say, oh, give them all, I'll take them all, just put my name on it. And then in many cases they wouldn't even come pick it up, and in the meantime somebody else would be, well, I would have used it if I just had a chance. So the whole table didn't really end up being as successful as we wanted it to be. It also became a place where some people held items, and people would ignore that there was somebody's name on it, and then it would just get pulled away, and somebody would drive here looking for the thing that they were coming to pick up, and it was gone, so it was a wasted trip. So we really just make it where you come, and what's available is what you can help yourself to, and then also hopefully you contribute back to the library. But the idea of a hold table I wouldn't recommend it, particularly for as the library grew larger. What we found as well is that there were people who would share the information from our library to other much larger plant sharing organizations, some of which are have in excess of 10,000 members. And so as soon as something showed up on the seed library, it would just be broadcast to these other larger groups, and then things were just getting taken away almost as soon as they showed up, and the people that were actually part of our library weren't seeing anything useful anymore. So we had some rules that we had developed about just please don't share our library information with other libraries, just so that we can kind of keep it within. That has helped us a lot, even though really, anybody can join the library, but it just doesn't help when you have these huge organizations here get wind of it, and they show up immediately and just sort of scoop up all of our plants, and it's not so much fun. Okay. We do also encourage people to do what we call porch pickups, where if you're living close to somebody, they can't pick it up right away, leave it at their home, and maybe they leave something for you to take away when you do that. But that's another strategy that our seed library has used, and that's been useful for connecting people, especially if they live closer to each other than they do to the library. It's a way of saving gas. We also utilize that Facebook page for things like, when you join, you understand the rules of the library. It's also a place where people share information. It's a place where we share events. We've done some hosting of our gardens with other people from the library to come see us, and those kinds of events. Also dinners and lunches together, instructional sessions. All those functions are on the Facebook page, but it's also just a good way of also storing information that we can have, like what we are talking about right here, how to start a seed library. That document is on there, or the rules that we use for our library, or the map of all the local libraries, which is really getting into a pretty expansive area in central North Carolina. So all that information can be found on the Facebook page. You're certainly welcome to borrow or adapt any part of the North Raleigh Seed Library strategies that you want. Yep, and it's just a place to, and also to share photos. A lot of folks, they like to share the pictures of their garden or pictures that are taken of plants somewhere else, and so it's just a nice place to engage with the community. So I would say, that's those are really the considerations for not just selecting your site, but also having an infrastructure for how to run the library. But again, it's a good idea to function with tools that sound kind of official and maybe not very plant-ish, but they're on the other hand necessary for when you start to expand out into larger groups of people. As I said, we have about 2,800 members right now, and anytime you get that number of people together, if you're not functioning with some rules, it can become difficult. And so we want to smooth things out as much as possible, let people know ahead of time, this is what's expected and this is how we function. And if you do those things together with a good site selection, I think you're going to really enjoy having your own seed library. So thank you, and if you have any questions about any of this, you can certainly just post a question to the North Raleigh Seed Library, and one of our administrators, which might include myself, will respond to your question. Thanks for listening.